world that we live in, it seems that there could be more trust, more caring, more humanity, and really just getting along much better with all the breakthroughs we've had scientifically, technologically. But instead, it's amazing what's been happening and the turmoil that we've encountered in 2020. You know, so much has been written in the media, in websites, the papers, in texts, in radio, television, all kinds of sources. And but at the end of the day, when you look at it, there's so much confusion, it doesn't add up. So how do we not get confused? How can we tell what's true, what's not true? Maybe it's that way, but then you could be a friend who said maybe it's not. And then you hear something that sounds really plausible, and then somebody else tells you, no, that wasn't true. Or you get fact check, and fact check says, no, that wasn't based on the real study. And you see the things have been omitted. What are we going to do? How can we get along and not have these confusions? Not be fooled by some maybe ingenious marketing? How do you not feel like a leaf being blown in the winds of the chaos that's been happening in this last year or so? So if you look at it, while nothing in life can be guaranteed, still we need to endeavor to find some truth. And in this program, we're going to do that. We're going to actually sort and search and present to you, our viewers, the truth, so that your lives can actually be lived in a more orderly and in a calm way, under your control. We're going to provide you tools so that you can actually face the multitude of problems that all of us face in everyday life. Our interviews, such as tonight, and our broadcasts will seek to provide you with workable tools. Something I want to emphasize: workable tools. Tools that are based on actual technology, on fact, on some actual logical basis that could improve our quality of life. In a world that has become so complex and puzzling, A Time for Truth is going to set an example for simple yet precise solutions that can increase your ability to handle and control your life. It's going to allow us to have more time to do what we want with our families, with our professional lives, with our friends. And the episodes are going to create a space for pleasant, orderly, and resourceful outlet. The show will enable the artist in all of us. And it seeks to empower your personal, your social, and your professional growth. A Time for Truth via our televised shows, the media that we're connected to, and the communication networks that we're connected to, will allow you to sort through the confusions and mystery of life. Like clean air, like soap and water, the show is going to allow you to clear away confusions and empower each viewer to be a better person, to create a better family, to be a better member of the community, to help in the Metro New York area, our great Metro New York area, and our nation, and hopefully to create a better world together as one big family of all different creeds, cultures, and nationalities. I welcome you today to A Time for Truth, a place and a time where you can come each Monday at 8:30 and actually get information that will honestly help you, and where you can have trust and confidence in what's being presented. Today, I'm very lucky and we're very honored to have an international recording artist with us whose name is Judy Bahar. And there you have her on the screen, good friend of mine. Judy, are you there?
Hi, Ben.
Can you hear us, Judy?
See me? Hi.
So Judy lives in Florida, and she agreed to come on the show. She's a mother, professional recording artist, and can you hear us now, Judy?
Yes. It goes, but it's better now.
Okay, I guess we'll have to shift the show to make it like we're going to shift it from this into how to fix computer problems. But that can also be done also. It's not a problem.
Yes.
And Judy, can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's much better. Awesome.
So tell our viewers a little bit about you.
Well, I'm from Israel originally, and I moved to Florida 4 years ago with my family. I'm an international singer. I perform the last 30 years, and I recently opened my art studios and production company to create music videos and music productions for my students. They have my business, my students can sing, which I give lessons and piano lessons, online and in person.
So tell me something, Judy. How do you feel about the level of honesty and integrity in the society and how it affects you as a mother, a wife, with your family?
Wow, good question. Well, as far as you can see, and I'm sure that many will agree with me, that there is some room for improvement. If the topic of this program is about truth and freedom, so the last 8 and something months of our lives, our freedom and the truth is limited, to say the least. I think that the leaders of this country need to learn to live in peace, with each other, and set up a good example for the citizens of this land. It broke the trust of my family in everything that is them. We were missing good, strong guidance and leadership, and this affect my kid and the friends she has in school, because it is very hard to explain to a little girl what is going on, like that she cannot suddenly go to school, she cannot go to her friend's house to play. It is hard because you yourself, you don't really know what is right and what is wrong. You don't know what's happening. You get all kinds of truths or and life becomes very confusing. People create a confusion. Work is starts seeing money, and there were times when we had to down on some basic necessities and find a way to help others that were in a worse situation than us. But I found if you keep your spirit up, you set up a good example, and you help your neighbors and your friends and your family, eventually you will pull up from every situation, no matter how hard it is. And I can speak for myself. In March, me and my husband, we teach at school. We are like, he's a sculptor and a painter, and I teach music, and suddenly there's no school. One sudden day, now what do you do? So we're home with our, so we did an for kids, because we were allowed to have 8-7 kids, so to help our friends so they can go to their work, continue with their lives. And then I created the singing studio so I can teach others. And I found that with music creation, like I tell them, don't keep creating, don't keep looking up, look to the lights, keep the spirit up. And that brought so much happiness to them. And so happiness is contagious. So they bring this happiness to others. So it's
Absolutely.
it stopped the confusion. And, and I write more songs because I'm in my studio and I inspire others. Others inspire me. And it's tough, totally. I see the confusion and I try to just put myself out of this and just do what I do best. And,
Absolutely. Well, you know what, Judy? In that light, I know that you wrote a special song for tonight, and it's an amazing song. Is it okay with you if we play it? So we're gonna play your song.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to do tremendous amount. I just want to ask you one thing before we do play it. Is there something you want to convey about this song and why you wrote it for the show, A Time for Truth? Why you feel this song is important?
Oh, well, this song is called Stand in the... It's important because that you're doing everything. You pay your taxes, you're a good mom, you're a good father, you're a good friend, you're not a criminal, you didn't do anything wrong, and you do your best, and the world just hit you down. Every day there are new rules that cut your and don't give you, and this I felt, okay, what can I do for my part to help? So I created a song and I put it, on my social media, and people call me and people say, thank you for that, because it really, the remedy is you just keep moving on, let your fears melt away. You can be again the hero that you are, just stand in the light.
Beautiful. So you know what? With that great introduction, here we go with Judy Bahar's song. And we will play it for our audience right now. Let's begin.
Thank you so much.
Sometimes
Thank you, Ben,
life can
for
be
inviting
so
me to
damn
this
hard.
amazing show.
You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears melt away. You can be again hero that you are. Just stand in the light. Stand in the light. You're looking for the answers, never really found the why. Nothing makes sense, feel like you're losing your mind. You're not made of mud, you're creation of God. You have the power to make things go right. This could be heaven, and this could be hell, but don't give up your life.
Thank you, everybody. Mwah. That was a song from my heart to you. And I wish you to always stand in the light.
Thank you, Judy. Amazing. Thank you for participating. Will you come back again? I guess so. Okay, very good. So, continuing on with tonight's show, we're going to continue with a topic that's so essential with what's going on. You know, a lot of schools are closed, kids are home, and with this COVID, there's many, many changes we've all gone through. And now we have mothers at home helping their kids because kids are schooling at home. They have a lot of free time. And so it becomes even more important how they study. Do they study properly? Do they get something out of what they're studying? You know, the kids are our future. Without a future, what do we really have? So tonight, I'm really honored to have two internationally acclaimed educators with us on the show. They are Ari and Danagami, that you see there on your screen. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Ben.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let me introduce you a little bit so, you know, they get to know you. Ari and Dan not only are very highly known, respected professionals internationally, but they're family men. You know, they, just like all of us here on the island, they have their kids, they have their office, their profession, their wives, and they founded a group that's called Intelligence International. It's an educational organization of approximately 10 years or more now in duration, and it has experience in actually educating all across the globe in 15, wow, this is amazing, in 15 different countries around the world with tools to handle the barriers that our kids encounter in study. And so, you know, we have so much to cover, really, that without any further ado, I want to ask you, Dan and Ari, what did you see in the world, and what made you both decide that you needed to do this with this educational company you have, Intelligence International?
Well, that's a great question, actually, because when we finished our own education, we traveled through Europe, and we realized that a lot of the young people that were traveling like us were doing drugs and were pretty apathetic about life. And we realized that the main thing they had done, or they had invested their time into, was schooling, right? Mm-hmm. So the end result of that schooling, however, was not what you would expect, you know, an enthusiastic person wanting to go out and conquer the world. So we realized that we had to do something about education, and we had to change the way education was being delivered, mm-hmm. and the way education was being received, so that it really created a positive impact in the person.
Absolutely.
And if I may add,
absolutely, go ahead.
Ari and I were backpacking, and we were traveling, and we were not doing drugs, and we had a very healthy viewpoint about life, and we wanted to conquer the world, and we wanted to, you know, help people, and we wanted to just live fully. And our viewpoint was so enthusiastic about life that as we traveled, we met many people our age and different from us. They were, you know, using drugs or alcohol. They hated their education, or really had not enjoyed their education, and their viewpoint about life was so different that we thought we have to do something to change that. You know, people, when they graduate from school or from university, they should be enthusiastic about life, wanting to help people and make a difference in the world, not be, you know, on drugs or on Ritalin or on, whether legal or illegal drugs or on alcohol, they should be happy to be alive, not struggling with life.
Absolutely. You know what? I was going to ask you something because I've heard and I've seen myself from my personal experience that sometimes people think that they're just naturally ignorant, or they don't have a capacity to learn, or maybe they're low IQ. But I know that with this program, you've had some astonishing results. So tell me, how exactly does your program work?
So what happens is when most people study, there's a lot of different reactions that can occur, right? So you start studying and you feel good about it, but then 10 minutes later, you're bored, you're distracted, you're confused, you're not paying attention anymore. All you want to do is drop the class or go outside or do anything else, right? Your attention is dispersed, and all of these things affect the way you study and learn, right? Now, I think we've all experienced, out of 1,000 people that we ask, have you ever felt bored while studying something? 1,000 people will raise their hand.
I raised my hand too.
So until we change that, until we change how we feel when we study, and how we invest our time and the return on that investment when we're studying, how much we gain out of every hour that we invest into studying and learning, until we change the viewpoint and the experience for the student, then we're not going to change education. So we have focused on finding educational tools that change that experience and that make it something valuable, something exciting, something practical, useful. And that's really what we're all about. How do you say it? Like stopping the student from having all of these negative reactions towards school.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I would think that if a young child, let's say 7, 8 years old, starting in school and just didn't know how to study, that they could just automatically start feeling so bad that they would start going the wrong way. I mean, tell me a little bit about that. Is that something that you've seen with young kids?
Of course. I mean, it is very common. If you look around a classroom, an average classroom, you're going to find a high percentage of the kids are distracted or not paying attention or having some difficulties concentrating. Or, this is an experience that everyone has had. Like my favorite example of a barrier to learning is, have you ever been reading down a page and you got to the end of the page and you had no idea what you had just read? Most people will answer yes. That happens to me all the time. And so it happens to almost every student in every school around the world. Most students, whether, sometimes they're good at math or they're good at reading or they're good in a certain area, but in other areas, they will feel these barriers to learning. And so what Ari and I have focused our entire professional career is to eliminate these barriers to learning. You see, when you take away these barriers, students can learn faster, can get better grades, can concentrate much better on their study. But the main thing is that they actually understand what they study. So if they have a basic understanding of what they're studying, then learning can actually happen. They truly learn, and then they can apply what they learn to their lives. So that's what intelligence is all about: how to eliminate these barriers to learning, how to just be able to study faster and better and actually have an understanding and an application of what you are studying.
Boy, I gotta tell you, you guys get me excited over here. And you sent a really great video. And if it's okay with you, I'm gonna ask the engineer to play chapter 1 of the Intelligence and International video, because this is really exciting. I'm really a kid at heart anyway, so I got to learn this for myself. I'm happy I had you on the show, because now my wife will think I have a chance with all this, And so, engineer, please play the video.
Chapter 1. The Problem with Education. Our world is changing. Human knowledge is advancing exponentially. But is everything really okay? How can we make our world a better place? How can you make your world a better place? The answer lies in a single word: education. There is a catch, however. Our educational systems are failing. Did you know that 1 billion people on this planet can't read? That 1 out of every 10 young adults can't even write a simple statement about their everyday life? And that by failing to educate, we are factually creating poverty, criminality, unemployment, and a long list of social tragedies. Now, if you think this has nothing to do with you, think again. Did you ever have trouble in your own education? Did you ever notice how hard you studied to pass a test, only to forget most of what you had studied? How many times in the many years of your education did you think to yourself, I wish I didn't have to study right now? Well, we've all encountered difficulties like these. You too can improve your standard of living by being able to solve the problems of your education. Now, more than ever, learning is the most important ability you can possibly possess. If you can learn, you can become able, competent, and achieve success. If you can't learn, you don't stand a chance. The question to ask yourself is, what if you could make things better? What if a student's attitude could be changed? What if everyone could truly understand and enjoy their own education? Well, there is an answer. The study tools presented in this film are breakthrough discoveries, which can help you improve your ability to learn any subject. These tools have already obtained remarkable results with more than 35 million students and teachers in 70 countries. Dozens of governments have endorsed this new educational method, enabling students to score up to 12 times higher than the national average. The purpose of this film is to help you find answers to the problem of education. Answers you can use. Answers that work.
Fantastic presentation. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you know what? It's very interesting. I want to relate a story of my own. When I was at college, and it was in my second year of college at University of Connecticut, I was taking organic chemistry. And I was confused, so I went in to the professor. And I'll never forget it. There was some topic I just couldn't get. And I have to relay this because this may have happened to our viewers out there watching. And he said to me, you know, I think you better pick a different field because you're never going to make it as a professional. And I left there, and for a few moments, I was really like down. I said, wow, I guess I'm never going to make it. And then you know what? My father was a Cuban physician, and I thought of him, and I thought of my family. My mother was a pharmacist, and I said, you know what? And I got motivated, and I said, I'm going to make it. And I went back, and I started studying, and I continued. But I thought about this as I was watching your video, because I said, some kids, if they have a really rough life and that happens to them, wow, that's the end of their life, right? So I was curious, because I wanted to ask you too, since you're the experts in this field, does that happen? And what can you relay to teachers when they're encountering students who are having difficulty? I want to turn over the floor to you. Tell me.
Sorry, what was the question?
You know what? With these phenomena, like what I experienced, it could have ended my career. If I didn't have the motivation to continue, I would have given up. Maybe I would have started drinking or taking drugs because of thinking I would never make it. So I wanted to have you tell the parents out there, or maybe a student who's out there who feels really horrible, who had the same thing as I had happen to me. I'm a periodontist now for 40 years. I was the valedictorian of my dental school class, so he was totally wrong. But I wanted your opinion as the experts for you to tell the parents out there or the teachers who are encountering these difficulties, and you go ahead and take the floor however you want to deal with this. Go ahead.
Great. So, Ben, thank you for that example. And actually, that happens more often than it should, whether it is done on purpose, like it sounds like your teacher, your professor was aiming to disappoint you and say, you're never going to make it as a doctor, or much more often it happens by mistake. And we call that an invalidation. And its opposite would be validation. When you validate someone, you make the person feel valid and correct, and that the person is doing a good job. You recognize that they're, what they are doing in a positive way. So if you're teaching a child and you say, hey, you did a great job, you are very smart, you're making a great effort, we're going to continue to push you ahead, and we're going to work together so that you do a great job. All of that would be validation. Now, the opposite is invalidation, which is what your teacher did to you. You're never going to make it as a doctor. Just give up, and you're invalid, So we, of course, strongly recommend finding the good things that your children are doing in their education, and actually recognizing them and validating them for it. So maybe he got a D in one of the subjects, but maybe he got a better grade in another one. So make sure you pay attention to the positive. Among all the things that he's doing correctly and incorrectly, find those things that he's doing well and acknowledge them and validate them and actually encourage the child to continue to do well. If that teacher had said to you, Ben, I see you're making a big effort, and I know that you're having a difficult time in some areas, but I also see you're trying your best. So Ben, you and I are going to work together, and we're going to see you through until you're the best doctor that graduates from this university. That would have fired you up and made you excited to learn. So for all the teachers out there, and the parents and the moms that have to be teachers now at home as well,
Exactly.
Make sure you validate your children, find those positive things, and encourage them to continue learning, and you're going to see a big difference in their self-confidence and in their motivation to learn.
Absolutely. I'm going to say something to you, is as you were saying that to me, brought to light my wife, Maria, who really supports me and is validating. Sometimes life can get you down. And also a friend of mine, Ludwig, who's such a great guy. And also my daughter, Megan, who has great acknowledgments. And those three people came to mind. So, we have a lot of parents and teachers watching this right now. So, and we talked about validating, and I can see that because I personally could understand it. So, what other approaches do you want to relate to the parents out there with this COVID, with the kids at home, what would you recommend to them?
Well, that's a big question, and we have curriculum and we have courses that parents and teachers can take and really gain an understanding of how to improve education for the kids or their students, and so they really enjoy it, right? But the first thing that parents out there and teachers out there need to understand is that there's correct ways of studying and there's incorrect ways of studying.
How do you mean?
So, well, there's many ways that we can study something, and some of them will lead us down the wrong path, and others will lead us down the right path, right? So, for example, many people think that memorizing things is learning. And memory actually has little to do with memory.
Huh.
Learning has little to do with memory.
Okay.
Learning has a lot more to do with understanding than memory. Right? A lot of people focus on the grades or the exam, but many of these tools are mainly focused on memory tricks. And then I'm sure that a lot of your viewers can relate to this. You cram for a test, you sit down and study all night and memorize all these facts and things, and then you take the test, regardless of what the grade, even if you got an A on that test, how much do you remember today?
It's so true. There's so many courses I can think of that I took, and I go to myself, geez, you know what? Well, I don't do anything with that. And why is that? Where there's others in dental school, we actually had a balance of doing and learning, and I really enjoyed it because I felt like I could take what I was reading and then apply it somewhere. How much do you think that has to do with actual understanding?
That's actually a phenomenal way of learning something, to balance the theory and the practical. You have to make it, of course, there's information you have to know, but you have to know that information to apply it in life, to put it to use. So, when we do learn things in a practical way, then it's a lot more fun, it's a lot more engaging, and the result is more enjoyable. And there's actually a lot more learning happening than when we sit all night and cram for a test or something like that.
Interesting. I heard that one of the things I was hearing is that in order to learn, first a person has to have a certain mindset. Can you tell me more about that? What do they mean that you have to have a certain mindset to learn? Can't you just learn no matter what? Or what is this mindset that I've been hearing about?
Well, that's a great question, and there's actually quite a few different factors that can improve a person's learning, and it always starts with a person's attitude. If a person has the right attitude toward learning, then his chances of success are much higher than if he has a negative attitude towards learning. Someone who thinks he knows all about it, or he knows everything about it in the first place, or his attitude, even if he doesn't think that, but if his attitude is not willing to learn, and he doesn't really want to learn, then of course he's never even going to step into the doorway of his path towards learning. So it starts with a positive attitude, and then it is followed by having a correct purpose. If you're trying to study something, and like you were saying, some of the classes or some of the courses you took, you felt you were never going to use. So therefore, you put minimal effort into just passing for the test. But what about the classes that you knew you were going to apply as a dentist or as a periodontist? So if you have a clear purpose for studying something, then you're much more likely to be focused and to be motivated to learn it. Unfortunately, a lot of the curriculum today that is covered in schools and universities has, from the student's viewpoint, little relevance to actual life. You know, like there's so many things that we sometimes learn in school or in university that we've never applied in our lives. And this is a big failure by design. You know, educational programs would be so much more interesting to the student if the student knew how he was going to use it in his life, if he had a clear purpose for studying that subject. And there's so many subjects that actually are useful and are important, but the student never realizes its relevance and its purpose. So he just memorizes, passes the test, and then forgets all about it. And it is unfortunate, because if the teachers really just focused on teaching the students how are you going to use it? How are you going to apply it? How are you going to be a more successful individual and a more successful adult if you apply this information to your life? You know, if every subject was accompanied by its purpose in life, then students would have a much better mindset and attitude toward learning that subject.
You know, that makes total sense, and I know that the viewers are watching out there right now. Probably there's some parents or teachers who had a really rough time with someone, a student who had like this, they know it all, or they're not interested. So I know that they would want to know so I want to actually prod you on this for them. They probably want to know, okay, well, come on, Dan and Ari. So what do I got this one guy, and I would love to give him to you guys. So let's say he was here right now, and you know, this is talk about a tough question, but I want to really help those viewers out there watching us. So what do they do with this student that is just like what we just talked about? Go ahead, either one of you.
Well, there's many things that you can do. So first of all, try to be understanding. Try to realize that he's probably trying, and there's a lot of frustration that has already accumulated, and that's why he's behaving that way, and that's why he is rejecting the subject.
So what you're saying is because he's had difficulty, he already is predisposed, so he's kind of defending himself.
Exactly. Now, you know, what Dan was saying with regards to the purpose and talking about why is it important? Why is it valuable for him? And you have to start speaking his language, his reality, you know? So if he likes basketball, then we're going to relate math and geometry and everything else to basketball, because that's a purpose he has, and that'll make him feel passionate about it, right? That's another tool. Another thing that you can do is take all the pressure off and make it into a game. You know, Learning is so serious, and there's so much threat and pressure connected to studying that it makes it really horrible. You know, so no one's paying the kid, no one's rewarding him. What's his motivation? Now, kids like to play. And if you make it into a game, and there's a million ways to make learning into a game, but if you make it exciting for them, then that takes away all of that pressure and all of that seriousness, and they can be a kid while they're learning. There's so many tools, you know, for those people out there that are really interested and really want to do something effective. They can go onto our website and just check out our courses. We have courses for parents, we have courses for teachers, we have courses for the students themselves, and they contain really precious tools, valuable tools that they can learn and apply and really create a big impact and make a big change in their kids' education.
Absolutely. Do you feel, because you know, as you were speaking, I remembered what in college with what some of the courses, and you're right, there was so much pressure, and that I memorized. So you touched upon this a little bit, but I think it'd be important to maybe a little bit more. Is so, you know, because I know kids sometimes they just they take this Levin course for SATs and just memorize the answers. And I understand, you know, I went through that myself. I'm not going to say I was like innocent of it. I think we've all done that to a point. So, but what is it that happens that you're saying with the memorizing, that it's not an understanding? I want you to clarify that for the parents out there, whatever, because I think that would be something that by having that in mind, then maybe we can get to that kid so he understands that. Are there examples you can give of that would be real to the parents out there, realistic?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, let me clarify. Memory sometimes is necessary for learning, and it's not necessarily like the evil demon that most people think it is. It does become a demon when memory is substituted instead of understanding, and that's where the problem begins. But like, for example, the multiplication tables, sometimes you have to commit things to memory, and that's okay, you know. But if that memory is not based on a solid base of understanding, that's where you get lost, because you cannot memorize something forever if you don't understand it. You see, if I was gonna get a heart surgery, I don't want a guy who just memorized the textbook and doesn't really understand what's going on. I want the guy who did it 1,000 times and got it right every time, and he really understands anatomy and biology, and he gets it so that if something is different during the surgery, he can properly react. That is based in understanding. Now, I also don't want the guy who's operating on me to be checking his textbook. I want him to know the procedure cold by heart, you know? So memory has an importance in learning, but when understanding is absent from the scene, when memory takes the place of understanding, that's when we get really lost. So really we should define what learning is, and learning should be defined as achieving a new understanding or a better way of doing something in life. If you can, that is real learning, you know, achieving a new understanding. So if you then memorize it cold, that's fine, you know, and you'll be a real pro at whatever you do. But for learning to be real learning, then it has to be based on understanding, you see? And that way, if you take it into a different context or into a different scene, you can still apply your learning because you know it, you understand it, and you can apply it to every different situation. Now, for real learning to take place, then you need to learn how to learn. You need to learn the different things that block your understanding and that don't permit you to understand things. Like when you get to the end of the page and you have no idea what you just read. You see, understanding didn't happen at that point. So you really need to figure out, and this is something that you can study as a subject, you know. Learning, you should be able to learn any subject, and this is something that is usually not covered in schools or universities. You know, they'll teach reading, math, history, geography, geometry, but they'll never teach the student how to study to actually achieve understanding. And that's what we do. We teach teachers how to teach. We teach students how to learn. And we teach parents how to help their children so that their education is successful. And in that way, you eliminate the barriers to learning, and you can actually have an education based on understanding and not just in memory.
You know, it's very interesting because you bring to light sometimes that in the articles that I see, especially with COVID and whatever, I'm just wondering if some of these articles that have been posted have actually had this phenomena on people in general, where they just don't understand what they were looking at with COVID. Is that possible?
I would say it's guaranteed. You know, I think that
because imagine the reactions that are occurring just by that mere fact. Would that be true?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I'm sure there are people who do their due diligence and do their work and they really understand it, but I would say that's the minority. I think most people just hear something that was said in the news, or something that was said as an opinion, and they never check if that is false or if it's true or if it even makes sense. So I think that there's a lot of false information floating around, not just about COVID, but in many different subjects.
In general, I would think that would be part of learning, right? That if we're learning, then we have to, as part of the learning, be able to compare one to the other, right? Would you tell me about that?
But I didn't fully understand.
And in other words, I would think as part of learning is also comparing. So to make sure that what we're thinking is true.
Right. Well, one of the chapters on our course is actually called Analyzing Information.
Uh-huh.
Because we live in an age of information. There's so much information available, and yet we don't know what the source of that information is, and we don't know whether that information is factual or is just somebody's opinion. So there's a lot to say with regards to the different sources of information that are available, and how we must evaluate and weigh the data that we have to see what information is highly valuable, what information is, is just information but not so important, and what information could potentially be harmful or false or give us a false impression. So when you really start analyzing information, which is not something that always gets taught in school. It's like, this is the way it is, and this is how you must learn it. And if you don't put it on the test that exact way, then your grade will be lower. So that's definitely part of our way of looking at education. You have to analyze information for yourself.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question in the time that we have winding down here. Do you have a story that comes to mind of a kid or an adult that you helped with study that was having a lot of difficulty that you could just relate now during the show of how they changed?
Sure. Well, I met a sixth grader at one point who was really having a tough time. He hated learning. He hated his teachers. He didn't want to do homework. He didn't want to go to school. He was having behavior issues, starting to have fights in school, and all these different problems with related to school. He got kicked out of school. He started drinking. He started smoking, and that kid was actually me.
Wow.
I was kicked out of school when I was 12. Private school, Montessori school, phenomenal place, but I was just not tracking with my education. And many years later, I discovered that I was smart, that I could learn, and that it could be enjoyable for me and worth my time. And I'm actually now passionate about education. I study every single day. I'm learning things every single day. And that's really why I get up in the morning, because I know that there's kids out there and young adults who feel like they're failing. And it's not true. The system is failing them. And if you give them the right tools, if you explain things to them, and if you empower them with educational tools that they can use to help themselves, then they can have an incredible future. So that's a little story. I know, because I lived that experience myself, that you can turn things around and you can help anyone achieve a better and brighter future by making education more fun, with more comprehension, with more understanding. And that's our goal, to help these families, to help these kids achieve the best future they can through making education something amazing and not a nightmare.
Well, you know what? I want to thank you for your honesty and telling that story. I was going to say, you know, we've covered so much, but there's so much more to cover, and I wanted to say, wow, if I asked you to come back, can you? Because I know the viewers out there probably want to know about these what you do with these barriers to study. There's probably teachers out there who want to know much more. So if I invite you back, and we have you back, and we can have a series of these on education, would that be okay with you?
Thank you. We're flattered, of course. It would be our honor.
Okay, and then you know what, I can, tell my own story maybe about some things that I went through too, and and we'll all share that together, because that's the whole purpose of the show, is to have a learning of the truth about what's going on, and getting some reality on different techniques that we can utilize to fix those problems in life. And to me, to help the kids to study so they can learn and have a future is fantastic. So I want to really thank you guys for being here. And
it's our pleasure.
well, it was beautiful for it, for your group, and definitely let's do that. We'll see if we have you back soon, and we'll continue with maybe part 2. Sound good?
Beautiful.
Okay. So for tonight, I want to thank all of you out there who watched this first inaugural broadcast of A Time for Truth. I was born in Cuba. I came to this country at a very early age, and this is a great country, and I felt that I wanted to give something back. And at this time, with what we've gone through in 2020, I thought that, well, what better way to give back than to give back tools, truth, like was given to me when I was a little 8-year-old Cuban boy. We hope that you've enjoyed this show, and that you've gotten something beneficial out of it, and that you come back next Monday. We plan on having this every Monday at 8:30. And for now, as your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkov, I want to thank you for being here, and have a very good night.